Good evening and welcome to a special expanded edition of Lawmakers. I'm Bill Nygett. Earlier today, Governor Nathan Deal gave his annual State of the State address to update Georgians on key issues and to outline his goals for the 2016 legislative session. Right now, we're going to present his remarks in full, followed by the Democratic response delivered by Senator Vincent Fort. We'll see you on the other side to break it all down with our panel. Here now, Governor Nathan Deal.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Please be seated. Lieutenant Governor Cagle, Speaker Ralston, President Pro Tem Schaefer, Speaker Pro Tem Jones, constitutional officers, members of the General Assembly, members of the judiciary, my fellow Georgians. Every year, during this second week in January, we gather in this chamber of the People's House to assess the condition of our ship of state. We review its travel log for the prior year. We inventory its store of resources. We evaluate the effectiveness of its crew. We plan its journey for the coming year, and we attempt to forecast the weather and the condition of the seas that it must traverse. Like mariners of old, we consult our charts. We plan how to best avoid the rocky shoals that would damage our vessel and jeopardize the safety of our crew. But after we conclude our planning and are ready to set sail on our annual journey, what do we do if the wind is not blowing? Or worse, what if it is blowing from the wrong direction? It is in those times that true leadership is required. It is for those occasions that each of us who are elected leaders must step forward. It is how we react to those events and circumstances we did not plan for and over which we have no control that determines the future of our ship of state and the safety of our cargo. It is said that at such times, the pessimist simply complains about the wind. The optimist is content to wait in the harbor because he expects the direction of the wind to change. The true leader, however, gets about the task of adjusting the sails. When I addressed you for the first time in January of 2011, Georgia's ship of state had been severely battered for 2 years by the storms of the Great Recession. Our reserves, that is our rainy day fund, had been almost completely depleted in an attempt to keep our ship of state from sinking. Over $1.4 billion from that fund had been used during that 2-year period. And yet, the waves were still beating against our ship and the winds were still blowing from the wrong direction. Our revenue had dropped by $2.3 billion from 2007 to 2011. Our unemployment rate was at 10.4%. Our prison population was the 4th largest in the country and was projected to grow by 8% over the next 5 years. Our high school graduation rate was at an unacceptable 6.5%. Georgia was losing tens of thousands of jobs, especially in the construction industry. Our manufacturing sector was at a disadvantage compared with other states because we were imposing sales tax on energy purchases. The Savannah River Deepening Project, which was authorized by Congress 12 years earlier, was at a standstill, with the real prospect that the larger vessels that would be coming through the enlarged Panama Canal would not be coming to Georgia. Many Georgians had seen their savings wiped out. Business owners were in bankruptcy court, and families were losing their homes to foreclosure. Our revered HOPE program was rapidly approaching the point of being unable to fulfill the promises to our best students. Simply put, the winds of economic change were blowing in the wrong direction with an intensity and a duration not experienced since the Great Depression. As leaders of our state, we could have been pessimists and simply railed against the wind and make excuses for our situation. Or we could have been optimists and told our citizens just to be patient because it wouldn't last much longer. We watched some of our sister states take both approaches and conclude that until the Great Recession's winds shifted, their state governments could not operate on less revenue, and therefore their citizens must pay more taxes. Fortunately, with your support, we did not follow that pattern. Instead, we began the difficult and sometimes painful process of adjusting our sails. As a result, we grew our way out of hard times by passing conservative budgets coupled with the economic growth that was spurred by our reforms. Our rainy day fund that was almost gone 5 years ago has now grown to over $1.4 billion. By cutting taxes and removing regulatory burdens on businesses, our unemployment rate has been cut almost in half and now stands at 5.6%. And that construction industry that was hit so hard by the waves of the Great Recession now has the third lowest unemployment rate in the country at just 4%. By removing sales tax on energy for manufacturing, there have been some 22,000 new manufacturing jobs, a 6.4% increase that is more than double the growth rate of the United States. By the way, those jobs represent almost $900 million in added wages. The next step was addressing the jobs skill gap that our employers continued to encounter. As we looked at job openings around the state, we found that almost all of them could be filled if our citizens would attend one of our technical colleges and receive the necessary training. With your support over the past 3 years, we've identified 11 areas where a student will receive a 100% HOPE grant to obtain that training. These strategic industry workforce development grants cover 140 different programs, and I am recommending that this year we add industrial maintenance, an important ingredient to that list. I am proposing to devote $17.1 million in the 2017 budget for these programs. As our colleges and universities examine their degree programs and focus more of their resources on those that lead to employment, we will rapidly close the skills gap in our workforce. I am pleased that Georgia Southern University, for instance, is one of the only universities in the country and the only one in the Southeast to offer a degree program for precision engineering, yet another example of a high-demand area. In addition to directing more resources into post-secondary education programs that lead to employability, we've also moved our focus further down the education line. Our Move On When Ready legislation from last year, coupled with additional funding for dual enrollment, has greatly accelerated the pace of many students' educational journeys. This allows high school students to attend post-secondary institutions at no cost to them or their families. Currently, there are approximately 22,059 students participating in this program. My fiscal year 17 budget contains over $58.3 million to cover the cost of Move On When Ready. That is a 654% increase over fiscal year 2011. In order to further modernize our K-12 education system, I asked the State Board of Education and the University System of Georgia to allow certain high school computer science courses to count as core courses for purposes of high school graduation and college admission. Both entities have agreed, and there are currently 9 computer science courses that count towards a science or foreign language requirement. This will give us even more early learners in a field that is and will continue to be in high demand by our employers. Addressing workforce development needs extends into yet another area, and that is something we have made a priority, and that is criminal justice reform. In order to curb the growth in our prison population, we created the Georgia Council on Criminal Justice Reform, which has been chaired by Judge Michael Boggs and Thomas Worthy. I want to express publicly my thanks to these two gentlemen and the other dedicated members of this council. Would you please join me in thanking them for their service to our state? As a result of this body passing legislation to implement the recommendations of that council in prior years, we have seen a substantial drop in our prison population as thousands of nonviolent offenders are being diverted into accountability courts, where they're given a second chance and the opportunity to receive treatments for their addictions. By converting inmates into taxpayers and by educating and giving paroled inmates marketable skills, we will begin to reduce our recidivism rates, which will in turn make our state safer. This same diversion is occurring in the juvenile justice system. In short, Georgia is recognized as the leading state in the country for meaningful criminal justice reform. There will be more recommendations from the council this year, which I ask you to consider and approve. So as you can see, we've made great progress over the past 5 years in improving and expanding the skills of our present and future workforce. But these successes are not enough. My administration has spent more of the state budget on K through 12 education than any administration in the past 50 years, which included over $1 billion additional dollars for the past 2 years and an additional $416 million that you will see in fiscal year 2017's budget. However, our education boat is still leaking and needs some repairs. As we contemplated modernizing our education system, it is important to acknowledge the progress that we've made over the past 5 years. Our graduation rate from high school has increased by over 11% to 78.8%. That is an average change of 2.83% every year. As significant as that increase is, during that same 5-year period, our dropout rate has remained unyieldingly stagnant at an average of 3.66%. To put it bluntly, 96,660 students dropped out of school between 2011 and this school year. That is over 4,000 more than are currently enrolled in our entire technical college system. That is a wind that is blowing in the wrong direction, and we must continue to trim our sails to bring that dropout number down. Based on the success of our criminal justice reforms, we sought to improve and transform education in Georgia. I appointed the Education Reform Commission last January and tasked them with examining our entire education system and reporting back to me and the members of this General Assembly with bold recommendations on how we could better prepare our students for the 21st century. That report has now been submitted, and I want to thank Dr. Charles Knapp, who served as chairman of that commission, as well as the other 33 members of that commission and their support staff. Please join me in thanking them for their service. Because of the magnitude of the recommendations contained in that report, some statutory changes will be necessary to implement them fully. Other recommendations can be achieved through the budgetary process. As an example, my proposed budget provides funds to implement a new compensation model for our pre-K programs in order to retain lead teachers, increase assistant teacher salaries, and maintain classroom quality. The pre-K budget recommendation is in excess of $358 million, which includes some $26.2 million for salary increases and an additional $7.9 million for a 3% merit pay increase. As the Education Funding Subcommittee was meeting this past year, I received a letter from the 4 legislators on that committee expressing their desire that the reporting deadline be extended for 1 additional year, that is, until August 2016. My letter response dated June the 3rd of last year extended the general reporting deadline to December the 18th, 2015. It further stated that during this 2016 session of the General Assembly, I wanted this legislative body to conduct a full review of the Commission's recommendations, and that is what I ask you to do. My budget next year will include funding to implement my recommendations and those of the Education Reform Commission. This will provide ample time to fully vet this report. It is important that we get it right. It is also important that in the meantime, the debate be conducted in good faith and that your recommendations be based on facts and not rhetoric. In order to assist you in your deliberations, I will be creating by executive order a teacher advisory committee similar to the Governor's Education Advisory Board, which I have had for the past 5 years. Now, since I've been governor, my wife and I have visited many schools throughout our state. My wife, by admission on my part, more than me. But we have been impressed by the progress of our students and by the dedication of the teachers, the principals, and the staffs of those schools. Now, since both of us grew up with parents who were teachers in the Georgia public school system in different parts of the state, we know that it takes a special kind of person to be a teacher. As society has changed and technology has advanced, many of the challenges our teachers face have become more difficult. As a classroom teacher herself, Sandra was particularly aware of the evolving demands placed on teachers. As we continue to discuss the recommendations of the Education Reform Commission, it is important for teachers and administrators to know that just because we're examining ways to more appropriately allocate taxpayer dollars and put in place different models to achieve better education results, it does not mean that you are not appreciated. Just as a sailor should not be insulted when someone repairs a leak in his boat and replaces his oars with a motor, neither should our teachers take offense when we try to do the metaphorical equivalent for them. I fully understand that there are many factors that impact test scores and graduation rates, and many of these are not within the control of our teachers. A good parent that is dedicated to seeing his or her child succeed in school is the best ally a teacher can have. And it really doesn't matter what the financial circumstances of those parents might be if they insist that their children go to school and arrive on time, that they do their homework, and that they not disrupt the classroom. They will be rewarded by the teachers who welcome the opportunity to work with students who do those things. So parents, I know you love your children and you want them to succeed in life. So please do those things, and you and your family will be richly rewarded. Over the past 5 years, members of this General Assembly and I have shown our appreciation for our teachers by making public education a priority, and we will do so again this year by appropriating an additional $300 million for K-12 education, which is more than enough to give teachers a 3% pay raise. We will distribute this money to our local school systems under the existing QBE formula. But it is our intention that your local school system pass the 3% pay raise along to you. If that does not happen, it will make it more difficult next year for the state to grant local systems more flexibility in the expenditure of state education dollars, as recommended by the Education Reform Commission. We've given local school systems large increases in funding over the past 3 years, and we've given them the flexibility to decide how to spend it. Based on a survey by the State Department of Education, 94% of school systems use those funds to reduce or eliminate furlough days. With the additional funding this year, furloughs should be a thing of the past, and teachers should receive that 3% pay raise. Now that the federal government has given states greater latitude regarding testing of students, I call upon the State Department of Education and local school systems to evaluate their testing requirements. If a test is not necessary to advance or tailor instruction, it should be eliminated. Now, I do not suggest that tests simply be abolished because the results might be embarrassing. In fact, it is those tests that pinpoint areas in need of remediation. But tests that are duplicative and do not enhance educational achievement should be abolished. Last year, this General Assembly did just that when it made and abolished the mandated graduation exam. It was decided that if a student had successfully passed all of the required courses for graduation, they should not be denied a high school diploma based on one final test. As a result of that change, thousands of students have been able to enter the workforce, the military, or post-secondary education without the stigma of not having a high school diploma. The Education Reform Commission has recommended a student-based funding formula to replace QBE, which is over 30 years old. Instead of spending money based on rigid, impersonal criteria, they recommend that we move to a funding formula based on the characteristics of each student. For the first time, for example, poverty will be one of those characteristics to be considered. I also recommend that school systems have the flexibility to utilize the talents of their teachers in expanded ways and be able to reward them accordingly. The Gwinnett County School System, the largest and one of the most diverse systems in the state, has taken on many of these initiatives recommended by the Education Reform Commission. Under the leadership of Dr. Alvin Wilbanks, System Superintendent and CEO, Gwinnett County is embracing innovation and is developing a teacher compensation model that rewards effectiveness, promotes flexibility, and requires accountability. Superintendent Wilbanks, thanks to you for being a pioneer and doing for what some are calling impossible. Your example and that of other great superintendents, administrators, and teachers throughout our state working together will be invaluable in removing the fear associated with change. Now, there will be those who will resist change, preferring to defend the status quo. For after all, the status quo as embodied in QBE has been in place for the entire tenure of most of the teachers in our schools. To those who are either inflexible or cynical, I would ask them to consider the words of former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tony Blair, who made the following observation, and I quote, "The scope, speed, and scale of change demands that we educate students for a future vastly different from our past," end quote. The education of Georgia's children is too important to be held hostage to a status quo that may feel comfortable to certain adults, but is a disservice to our children. The method whereby we educate our children must be as modern and adaptive to the changes in the world as our cell phones, our computers, our televisions, and our automobiles. If it is not, our children will stumble and fall when they step onto the escalator of life right outside the schoolhouse door. Last year, this General Assembly took a major step in that direction by voting to put the Opportunity School District Constitutional Amendment on the ballot this November. Currently, there are more than 74,000 students who are required to attend chronically failing schools. That is, schools that for 3 consecutive years have failed to achieve a score above a D or an F on our standard evaluation system. Now, to put that number in perspective, that is about the same number of students currently enrolled in the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and the University of North Georgia combined. I believe that in November, the voters of our state will help us trim our sails in order to overcome this vicious wind of chronic failure. There are other items in my proposed budget that I wish to call to your attention, and I will do so quickly. As you know, our mandated entitlement spending continues to grow through no fault of our own. Although we have seen our revenue grow, we've also seen mandated expenditures grow in the areas of healthcare and education in particular, taking up even larger segments of our overall annual budgets. In fact, the discretionary portion of the budget, which is now roughly 17%, continues to shrink. Rising healthcare costs continue to be a major factor. Consider, for example, our state health benefit plan. The state currently contributes $842 million each year for health care coverage of state employees, while also paying over $1 billion for the employer share for health insurance for teachers using the 2015 numbers. On top of that, we must also fund the state's Medicaid program and its growing rolls. The cost of this program has grown from $2.6 billion in 2013 to $3.1 billion in fiscal year 17, an increase of 15.7%. Medicaid and Peach Care spending per Georgia family amounts to $1,258 a year. And when federal and other costs are added to that number, it amounts to at least $4,365 each year. And that is without expanding our Medicaid rolls. Had we elected to expand Medicaid, it would have been required that we appropriate an additional $209 million in this upcoming year's budget just to cover that added cost. And that number would only continue to grow exponentially. These numbers don't even account for the reporting requirements levied by the Affordable Care Act on the state. To demonstrate our compliance with the mandates of the federal law, we must devote $2.1 million in next year's budget just to turn in the paperwork. When you combine the cost of federal dollars to that, the total is $4.4 million. In other words, that is just what it costs for us to tell the IRS that those who are in our state health benefit plan and covered by our Medicaid programs are in fact covered by insurance. I can assure you that those funds could have been better put to use rather than on bureaucratic paperwork. So if you want to carry on with our sailing metaphor, talk about something that could be thrown overboard, that's a good place to start. Once we've met our mandatory budget requirements, we must then ensure that our crew is appropriately provided for. And so we have been prioritizing rewarding our state employees for their hard work. Just as we are budgeting for a 3% pay raise for teachers, we are also including a 3% pay raise for all other state employees. Many of them have worked very hard as the Great Recession has required the state to significantly cut the budgets of the agencies for which they work. In addition, they are seeing the number of fellow workers drop. There are 4 agencies, for example, that had over a 20% annual turnover rate last year, with the Department of Developmental Disabilities and of Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities losing almost 1/3 of their employees last year. System-wide, the turnover rate last year was 18.4%. For those agencies with the highest turnover rate, this budget allocates additional funds to be used to raise pay scales in addition to the overall 3% increase. One of the highlights of last year's legislative session was the passage of House Bill 170. Yesterday, many of you attended a rollout of the most comprehensive plans for sustainable infrastructure improvement, I believe, in the history of our state. That would not have been possible without the support of those of you who voted for House Bill 170. Over the next 18 months, approximately 60% of the user fees from that legislation will be used to repair and maintain our existing infrastructure. The remaining 40% will be used for new investments in our infrastructure. Last year, I told you that with the revenue that was available at that time, a road that was paved when you graduated from high school would not be paved again until you were eligible for Social Security. With the new user fees generated by House Bill 170, we have brought that frequency down to every 12 to 15 years with regular maintenance in between. In other words, if your road is paved the same year you graduated from high school, it will be paved at least 3 times before you're eligible for Social Security, and in the interim will be paved and maintained during that interim period. Another important state agency that we have in our state that is often overlooked is our Georgia National Guard. In addition to being recognized as the nation's #1 Army Guard unit in 2013, more than 18,000 of our guardsmen and women have been deployed since 9/11. There were some 964 of them deployed last year alone. They serve our state both at home and abroad with distinction, and they deserve our unfailing gratitude for their valor. Please join me. Although the vicious winds of the Great Recession have battered our ship of state over the past 5 years, those winds have almost subsided and are now beginning to blow in the right direction. To the members of this General Assembly, thank you for helping me trim our sails without a mutiny. And to the state employees and teachers, thank you for your labors as you battened down the hatches and kept us afloat. To our fellow citizens, thank you for your patience, your support, and your hard work as we battled those storms together. Now, we're ready to unfurl our sails and set forth on this year's ocean of opportunity. As it lies before us, we're going to lead the way for others to follow, with #1 proudly emblazoned on our mast. To the members of the General Assembly, may God grant you wisdom in your deliberations, and may He continue to bless our great state of Georgia.
Here now is the Democratic response to the governor's State of the State address. Senator Vincent Fort of Atlanta.
Good evening. I'm Senator Vincent Fort of Atlanta. Thank you for joining me this evening. Governor Deal told us today that Georgia is the best state to do business. The governor told us today that our economy has brought prosperity to the people of Georgia. The governor told us today that he's finally going to fix our broken education system. He told us today that he has a solution to what ails the state of Georgia. I'm here on behalf of my fellow Democrats throughout the state. You heard Governor Deal's view of the state of our state and his plans for the next year. We Democrats will work with the governor when he's right, such as on criminal justice reform. When he is wrong, however, and he and his fellow Republicans too often have the wrong priorities and solutions for our state, we will oppose him and offer alternatives. Unfortunately, the Georgia of today is a place where economic inequality is among the worst in America, and a place where a person who wants to climb the ladder has less opportunity to do so than almost anywhere else in America. The fact is that a child born into a poor family in Georgia, whether they're in downtown Atlanta or rural Mitchell County, has less chance to work his or her way into the middle class than if they were born in almost any other state in the nation. That's wrong. We must not accept that, and we must work together to change it. The Georgia my Democratic colleagues and I seek to create is a place where every one of our public schools provides its students with the skills to succeed in the 21st century. We want a Georgia that stops turning down billions of federal dollars, tax dollars we have paid to Washington, by expanding Medicaid to provide health insurance to more than 500,000 Georgians. Create 70,000 new jobs and keep rural hospitals across the state open. We want a Georgia that invests in transportation infrastructure in a way that provides options for people in urban, suburban, and rural parts of our state, which means better roads and bridges as well as more mass transit. And we want a Georgia that honors and respects all of our citizens and their families and does not condone discrimination against anyone. The governor and his colleagues would have you believe that the policies they're pushing in the next 2 months are in your best interest. But make no mistake, those policies serve the powerful special interest, not the interest of our middle class and those striving to join it. We Democrats are fighting to change that here under the Gold Dome. And that is why we have been working to raise Georgia's minimum wage. At only $5.15 an hour, it is among the lowest in the nation, to a level that provides a wage that pulls people out of poverty and lets them start working their way up the ladder. In addition to helping those just starting their journey to the middle class, a minimum wage increase will boost Georgia's economy by over $800 million and create almost 3,000 new jobs. We Democrats also believe that the need to care for a sick relative or a newborn baby should not cost someone their job or put their family's financial well-being at risk. We will fight for legislation to guarantee paid family leave for those who need time off to care for relatives who need it. Several states across the country have already implemented similar programs to great success, with every employer in those programs reporting virtually no instances of misuse. I hope our Republican colleagues can put the interests of Georgia families ahead of politics and work with us to pass this critical legislation. You also heard the governor discuss his plan to rework the state government's commitment to fund our public schools. For more than a decade, the Republican leadership here at the Capitol has failed to meet our obligation, set by law, to fully fund the program that supports our local schools. Despite the governor's assurance today that this is the largest education budget in state history, he is only replacing some of the money that has been cut under years of Republican control. That has resulted in more kids in classrooms with fewer teachers and higher property taxes for homeowners as local school boards raise taxes to make up for the state cuts. Now, instead of providing the funding that school districts need, he has proposed a new funding formula which would lead to a drop in state funding for 178 of the 180 school districts in Georgia compared to the current formula. The promise of a quality education for everyone is a sacred trust entrusted to our state government. With the Republican leadership failing to hold up its end of the bargain, less than half of our students demonstrate proficiency in reading, social studies, science, and math. Our kids' SAT scores are among the worst in the nation. And why should this surprise us when adjusted for inflation? Teachers are making less money now than they were a decade ago, leading to high turnover. We have an obligation to our children to change course. Democrats will fight again this year to renew its commitment to our public schools and to make every school in the state one that provides its students the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in the 21st century. Expanding Medicaid remains a priority for Democrats as well. Our proposed legislation would provide health care to over 650,000 people, save hundreds of lives every year, inject billions of dollars into Georgia's economy, and create 70,000 jobs funded by money the Georgia taxpayers are already sending to Washington. In his speech, the governor failed to address one of the greatest threats to civil rights in Georgia, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or RFRA. The passage of this bill will allow discrimination against our LGBT families and drive businesses out of Georgia. More than 100 businesses, including Google, SunTrust, Coca-Cola, and AT&T, have spoken out in opposition to the bill. It is abundantly clear that this pernicious piece of legislation would hurt every single man, woman, and child in Georgia, not just the LGBT families, but every Georgian who has or wants a job. We will fight every single day until this bill is permanently dead and gone. The easiest way to know what politicians stand for is to look at the legislation they support. Do they support making health care available to everyone? Democrats do. Do they support legislation that gives people the tools they need to lift themselves into the middle class? Democrats do. Do they support legislation that protects people from discrimination based on orientation, color, and creed? Democrats do. And we will continue to fight for those principles and against legislation that violates them. We hope you will join us in our efforts by contacting your legislators and telling them to put the interests of everyday Georgians ahead of the special interests that too often control what happens here. Thank you for your attention this evening. God bless you, your family, and the state of Georgia.
So that was Senator Vincent Fort, Democrat from Atlanta, giving the Democratic response to Governor Deal's State of the State address. And if you were with us for the first half hour or so of the broadcast, you saw that speech that the governor gave today at the legislature in its entirety. So we have a lot to talk about in the next 15 minutes or so. So let's get right to it. We have a great panel of guests with us tonight. We're going to talk to Senator Nan Orrick, who's part of the Democratic leadership at the Gold Dome, Republican Representative Terry Rogers, who's now one of the governor's floor leaders in the House, and we're always happy to have political reporter Greg Bluestein from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with us as well. Let me turn to a reporter very quickly first, Greg. You were in the chamber, or you were in the press box during the speech today. How would you characterize how that speech was received by members?
Well, it was sort of a toned-down speech for the governor. It wasn't as ambitious as some of his other earlier addresses. Last year, for instance, he introduced his Opportunity School District, the school takeover bill, at that speech. In previous sessions, he's talked about the Hope Rescue Plan and other ambitious criminal justice reforms. This was a very sort of toned-down speech, talking about, A, what he's accomplished before, implementing that, and really sort of consolidating what gains he's made, and then B, talking about why he can't go as far as he wants to go this year on education reform.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that because that was a very important development, I think, and we'll get to that. But Representative Rogers, as a member of the governor's leadership team, was there a moment, was there a proposal that stood out in your mind, something that you were especially glad that he did talk about and that you feel the legislature could embrace in a very positive way?
Yeah, I think I want to pick up on that, what Greg just said, and that was the education reform thing. I think if you know this governor, when we talk about criminal justice reform, what he did with it was he spread it out over 3 or 4 years. We're constantly still tweaking it with bipartisan support, but he is very methodical. He analyzes, he thinks things through, and I think he looked at the education thing. He knows that it's broken. He wants to fix it, but he wants to do it the right way, so he has methodically taken it piece by piece. Now, the one thing that really excites me about that is when he talks about bringing in the new group to give him recommendations and look at it over the next year, is the fact that he's bringing in teachers, and I think that's very, very important.
If we could, let's put this in a little context and then bring you into the conversation, Senator. What we're talking about here is really two things. Number one, the governor for a couple of years now has said that he believed we really have to rework the funding formula by which the state gives money to schools. We're operating under the Quality Basic Education Act, which was passed by Joe Frank Harris's governor in '85. So he put that off for a year, put it into a task force. They came back with recommendations, but now he's saying, well, we really need to slow down on that. So that's one thing he slowed down on. The other thing is he said that he thought it was time to examine merit pay for teachers. Big pushback, including by some members of your own party. And he suggested today that that too needs to be studied with teachers in the mix down the road. Is the governor, in your estimation, putting off in education important matters that he's giving way to politics on?
Well, the polls are showing that Georgians are not behind this merit pay approach.
Yeah, the AJC poll showed that.
That's right. And when teachers were consulted by our school superintendent, you heard from 55,000 folks giving low marks on how the state has approached its teacher workforce. We still have teachers on furlough. And if you want to address funding, fully fund the Quality Basic Education Act. That has not been funded in the last 12 years fully. We've seen cuts to education, and the claim that we are giving more to education than we ever have. We have more children in schools now. We have cut the formula and reduced it, and there will be reductions to, I believe, 170 school systems under the formula.
Well, Vincent Fort referred to that, and I'll be quite candid, I'm not quite certain what that means. Can you explain it just a little bit?
Well, if you're not going to replace the $8 billion that's been cut out of the public schools of Georgia over the last decade, if you're not going to start with seeking to replace that, then you're starting at the end of the line. You've not fully funded. You've not met the law's requirements for funding public schools. You've put in austerity cuts, and schools are hurting. There's been local taxes raised on our citizens to fund schools because the state has reduced to below 50% its share of funding. So the record is not good on our funding commitment to public education.
Greg, does all this mean we're going to see a lot less action on education reform this session than many anticipated?
You'll see a different sort of action. There won't be a single legislative overhaul that would be very contentious to get through the legislature this year. Instead, I think he'll use his budget to start some of the processes. That won't be nearly as contentious, and it's also one of the most powerful tools in his arsenal.
Let me turn back to you, Senator, and then I'd love to get Terry Rogers in the conversation. Did you hear anything from the governor today as a member of the minority party that you thought, I like that, I can embrace that? Well,
I'll first say, and agree with my colleague from the House chamber, that the governor's record on criminal justice reform is very, very positive. It was done in a bipartisan way, and it reflects a bipartisan approach to criminal justice reform that's going on across the country. But Georgia's out in front because he started that the minute that he was sworn in. And with all the stakeholders at the table. I think we haven't had the stakeholders at the table that should be there on education to have that commission without any teachers' input. We're going to have to start over on that. I would say that expanded funding for preschool, for early childhood development, it's a high priority. That's where to invest our money to make the difference and get the bang for the buck. And he's given a pay raise for teachers in that at that level with our pre-K and our early childhood.
Well, he
development.
also, by the way, this affects really a small sliver of the state's population, but he's also talking about a 3% across the board pay hike for all state workers, including teachers, of course. I mean, it's not a bad thing to do in an election year, particularly, is it?
Well, obviously, it's not a bad thing to do in an election year, but also the thing about it is too, state workers and the teachers
That's right.
have for the past couple of years borne the brunt of this, and I think the governor has recognized that. He's looked at it and he said, yeah, let's do something about that and go forward with it. And I agree with the senator. I'm extremely excited about the fact of what we're doing with pre-K and where we're going with that. I have a daughter who's a teacher. I have a daughter-in-law who's a teacher. And so I hear this on a real-world sort of thing, and they will all tell you the key is to get to them early. The other key that the governor did touch on today is the parental involvement. That is so important. And somehow or another, we have to figure out a way to get to the point of where we have parents involved with the teachers and with the kids.
Let's talk for a minute about SB 129, the RFRA bill, the Religious Restoration Freedom Act that we know that Senator McCoon is so eager to get through the House. It's already passed the Senate.
Right.
The governor didn't mention that at all in his speech today. There've got to be members of the House who are chomping at the bit because they think it'd be great to get that bill passed to go back to their constituents and be able to say we voted for it. Did you get any pushback from members on the floor coming up to you as floor leader?
I've had people talk on both sides of the issue, obviously, but I think that the governor has been pretty straightforward down the line. He said that he thinks it's a legislative matter. It needs to work through the legislature. The governor also early on said that, he voted for it on the federal level, that President Clinton signed into law, and that he'd like to see something which mirrored the federal bill. But the one thing that I have seen with this governor is the fact that he does have a good working relationship with the legislature. Being a former legislator himself, being a former congressman, he realizes the executive branch and the legislative branch and how they have to work together. And so he's turned it back and said, guys, I've kind of told you my guidelines here, and go to work.
I mangled it. Religious Freedom Restoration Act. I mangled
RFRA.
it.
Yeah,
RFRA.
I call it the Religious Discrimination Act. In my
Yeah, of
spare
course
time.
you do. Let's pick up on Terry Rogers for just a second. Then I want to ask you about RFRA. Do you find the governor to be an easy leader to talk to? Is he reaching across the aisle? Are there opportunities for you as Democrats to get his attention, to find him cooperative on some of what you're trying to accomplish? Or is he a rigid party line kind of guy?
Well, as I said, on criminal justice, there's certainly a record there that there's been bipartisan support and progress.
Well, and of
Good
course, but
progress
that was
made.
his package coming forward.
That's right. And then he also reached out to embrace juvenile justice reform, which a lot of groups on the progressive side had been working for years. Redoing those codes and getting better outcomes with juveniles so that they don't go into a life of crime. They instead, are restored to the society. But I knew Nathan when he was chaired the judiciary.
Yeah.
He was a long and faithful member of the Democratic Party until Newt became Speaker in the House and he changed parties. So my relationship with him goes back many years, and he has a long history in lawmaking, as Terry just said. I personally have a good relationship with the governor. I will take issue with him on many counts. Lack of diversity in appointments being an early and often one, but I certainly would not put him in the category of hard-nosed.
Okay.
We've seen some governors from around the country that
Yeah.
they're pretty toxic.
Why, we've
That's
seen him right here
We've
in
seen
Georgia.
around the state also.
So, Greg Bluestein.
join in.
Greg Bluestein, you filed a column or a piece for Political Insider. You're on the online blog. Here's what the governor didn't say. What didn't he say? RFRA, one thing, of course.
He didn't talk about RFRA, as Representative Rogers says. He sees it as a legislative issue. He didn't talk about transit. He didn't talk about medical marijuana. That's another issue where he does break with House Speaker Ralston. They've managed to be in lockstep over some of the major issues. We saw that with transportation last year. But there is starting to be some, I guess, cracks in the in the foundation there over some big issues like merit pay and medical marijuana, where the House Speaker Ralston opposes some of Governor Deal's stances on those two.
So we're really running short on time, but there's another issue I want to take up. In the Democratic response, Senator Ford said we really ought to finally get on board with accepting Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, and he cited a lot of figures that he says make sense economically for doing that. There does seem to be a little sentiment among some Republicans, at least, that maybe it is time to explore that. What do you think about this concept?
You know, actually, I think the governor was pretty much on point with it. I mean, he laid the situation out. He laid out how much it would cost the state if we had gone to it. You know, and then one of the things that I think that's very important to point out is that we don't have the luxury of the federal government of being able to do some things with the numbers. Constitutionally, we're required to balance the budget. And that was $200 and some odd, million that we don't know where we're going in the future. I think the governor's taken a cautious approach, like I said, a methodical approach on that. And quite frankly, that money right there may be a big part of the 3% raises and things of that nature.
Of course, anywhere that you can find an investment where you put in $1 and you get $9 from the federal government, that's a real good return on your dollar of state investment. We need the jobs. We need to rebuild our healthcare infrastructure. And we've got, and you certainly see this where you represent, we've got rural hospitals dying on the vine. We have people having to drive an hour and a half to get a baby delivered. We have practitioners pulling out of local rural areas when the hospitals close down. And we could have $30 billion over 10 years of federal money in here funding our health care infrastructure and in covering people.
Real quick, though, does Governor Deal have a point that down the road, right now, great, the feds are going to pay for all this, but down the road, the state may have to take on a big burden if the federal government can't continue to fund this?
The federal government has been consistently funding Medicaid for decades, as well as Medicare for 50 years. And they've proven to be incredibly important programs to give people the coverage, the security. Part of knowing that you can live to a ripe old age and enjoy the fruits of your labor is, are you going to have access to a health care coverage when you need it? That's when you need it. When you need it is when you need it. And we've seen all across the country success stories of states that did expand their Medicaid. And I think it's inevitable. And I will say to you, the business community is weighing in more robustly on issues when they don't want to see the economy damaged by that RFRA bill. And they have set up a task force that's going to go all year.
Senator,
looking at this issue.
You have done a great job getting the last word on tonight's program. I'm really...
It's a pleasure.
Thank you all so much. Terry Rogers, Nan Orrick, Greg Bluestein. Always a pleasure to have all of you here. Tomorrow night, we're teeing up one of the most controversial issues the General Assembly is likely to tackle this year. It is, yet again, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, also known as RFRA. I'll remember that next time. Senator Josh McKoon has been trying to get this bill passed for 2 years. It still looks like he has a rough road ahead. So he'll join us tomorrow night to discuss it. We'll look for you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And in the meantime, we hope you stay in touch with us on Facebook and Twitter and let us know what you want to hear about this session. We look forward to your remarks. Thank you so much for being with us. Day 3 is a wrap up, but we got a long way to go. See you tomorrow night.